said, I am willing to be the servant of God. Because I believe that God somehow will make sense of this. Luke believed that somehow this impossible, preposterous story was believable. It was as far-fetched in his day as it is in ours. There is every reason to believe that December 25th is about Santa Claus and about the Easter Bunny and about... Okay, no one laughed at that. I was expecting someone to say, huh? You see, sometimes we make this so complicated. Because we look at our lives and say, well, you know, I was really thinking it was going to be different. I thought at this point in my life I would be X, Y, or Z. I thought that if I left this person or that person, life would get perfect. I thought if I wore this tie or that skirt or washed with this shampoo or drove that car, that my life would be just everything that Madison Avenue promised it would be. But then we have to ask, is what I bought what I need? The shepherds on that hillside all of those centuries ago, their life made sense. They were shepherds, their dads had been shepherds, their grandpas had been shepherds, their uncles, their cousins. They came from a long line of shepherds. But they were willing to say yes, that somehow God can speak to even me. It was not a clean, dainty profession. These were smelly people who worked with smelly animals. Nobody wanted to work the midnight shift in Bethlehem that night. But the shepherds were willing because that's what shepherds do. But like them, you have to look at that story. The angels whispering in your ears, the touch of somebody sitting next to you, and you have to be able to say, I am willing to put my life in the hands of someone, the same God that spoke to shepherds, to young women, to carpenters, to physicians, and to angels. You see, sometimes this story sounds too good to be true. I mean, it does. I mean, come on. Angels, angelic choirs, babies. I mean, come on. If you're looking to the answers to life, is that where you go looking? In a manger? In a feeding trough? Do you look in the horoscopes? Do you look at in the circulars or the ads in the paper? Where do you go to look for your answers, for your hope? This Advent season, this congregation has been each week looking at a different type of hope. And it comes down to, are you willing to accept the premise? Intellectually, it's difficult. because this story is so outlandish. It staggers the imagination and it defies rational thought. But isn't it a good story? What's the alternative? And I wish I could remember who said this. If this story is not true, it doesn't matter. And no amount of proof will convince you otherwise. But if the story is true, then nothing else matters. Tonight, nothing else matters. Tomorrow morning when you're opening your presents, or you're opening the newspaper, or you're opening your eyes, there's something that you've never experienced, you've never had, you've never known. Now you can go to bed tonight and wake up tomorrow morning as if nothing has changed. Those bills that still remain to be paid are still waiting. The health issue that you were dealing with this morning most likely will still be there. You're not going to get any younger. You're not going to get any more hair. Oh, sure, that you laugh at. But then you look in the mirror and you see what God sees. And in that moment, you know that nothing else matters. Because the baby came and grew up. And he lived with people just like us. And when he woke up each morning, he had to make a decision. Am I willing to follow God or not? Each day, that baby that was named Jesus looked at his parents and saw two people who were willing to love him. He looked at his neighbors and saw people who were willing to trust in God, even though it had been centuries since they had had their own king. Eventually, he would go to the cross because he was willing to take on the sins of the world. Christmas is upon us. Are you willing to open and see what is inside? Amen. Now, tonight, all over the world,